the concept for Golden Valley came from, was we were trying to create this European style of a food program with local foods, locally raised, without any sort of synthetic or chemical intervention in raising the food. And of course, this is back in 1993 when most people weren't even concerned about this, or they didn't even understand the concept, so it was very difficult to pull off. My wife's from Wales, England, and her family owned a farm, and it was near an area in England called the Golden Valley. And this area was a really rich and abundant valley, very small, but it produced a lot of great produce, and it's just a gorgeous place. You know, there's a lot of ruined castles, and it's a really nice place to visit. But that, in conjunction with the Willamette Valley, which is so abundant and so rich and produces so much great stuff that it's very hard to find this kind of production sort of anywhere in the United States, you know. So we're so lucky to be here. So that's where we came up with the name of the restaurant and the brewery. Our first brewer was actually the fellow who was our winemaker, and he had studied in France, winemaking in France, and so he continued making wine for us out of our vineyard. And he also went and did an apprenticeship at Full Sail Brewing in Portland with John Harris, and John sort of got us started on our brewing program. And so we've been brewing beer since 1993. The first couple of years was incredible. There wasn't as much competition as there is now, and by 96 we could hardly keep up with the brewing. The restaurant side of it was doing fine, but it was really the brewery that was the engine of the company at that time. By 96, the brewery industry in Oregon exploded, and all of your major breweries that you know now, like Deschutes and Full Sail and Portland Brewing and Woodmere, were quadrupling in size. And what happened was all of these breweries, in order to maintain that 24-hour-a-day production, they started sort of, the market got overloaded, and the value of the beer was quickly reduced. So we couldn't compete with that. You know, we've been in the Portland market for 18 years, and we have a name. It's just so hard to compete with the big boys, you know. We just don't have a marketing budget, and we just don't have the ability to give away cases of glasses and, you know, this stuff. And that's fine. I see that as just growing slowly, and I'm not going to push it. It'll have to, and it will, stand on its own feet and grow at a rate that we can keep up with. I mean, we're just in the process of sourcing new tanks because we just barely made it through the winter with the capacity we have. And we're producing, right now, we're producing about 1,000 barrels a year, which is certainly not big, but there's nothing wrong with it, you know. And the thing that I like about our beer program is that every beer that we have out there is rock solid. It's a classic style, and it's well balanced, and the flavor components are all there, but it's controlled. It's obvious that Mark knows what he's doing when you taste the beers, you know. Come around 2000, we did a complete remodel of the whole facility. A carpenter friend and myself brought in 11,000 lineal feet of recycled fir, and like this trim wood that you see here, we installed all that, but this is all recycled fir. And we spent 3 months doing this, and we would get up at 3 in the morning, and we would do the construction, and by 9 a.m. we'd have a cleanup crew come in and follow us up, and then we'd open up for lunch. And that was a tough 3 months. But we got it done. And at the same time, we got a new chef, Greg Meixner, who's been with us since 2001, I think. And Greg really took over the culinary program and took it to another level where we could really focus on the handmade, made from scratch, local products. And the same goes with the beer. It's all made fresh here, and Mark Vickery got on board about the same time, 2001, I think. Mark's background was working with Deschutes Brewery. He was there for 10 years, and he was there in the early times when they were just getting going. So he was there when they were designing Black Butte Porter and Mirror Pond Pale Ale. He went to Siebel Institute. Mark's got a good, solid background in what I would call classic brewing style. And that's what we shoot for. The beers, they're not overly hopped. We focus on traditional styles and balance. And a complex beer that is not overloaded with malt components. And I think that really describes the beer program as well as the food. Our food isn't over the top. It's just well made. And it's made with real ingredients. And so when you put both of those together and then you tie it in to the Willamette Valley, what we have locally, and the wine program, and what's going on in the Oregon wine program, you have a pretty interesting combination there. We had some neighbors, Domaine Serene, that really wanted, we were neighbors with them, and they really wanted to add our vineyard to their program. And so we sold the vineyard in 1998. We spent another 4 years looking for another property to move to. And in 2003, we found a piece of property to the west of McMinnville that was actually one of the oldest cattle ranches in Yamhill County. And we didn't know that at the time. We found that out as we looked into it. And we really didn't have the cattle program in mind when we were looking at the property. But as we looked at it, at the time we were taking our spent grain from the brewery to a dairy, and they were using it for feed. And we were buying this property. It was a 76-acre ranch. And I was going, well, why don't we raise our own beef here for the restaurant? All of the feed that's given to them has no hormones, no antibiotics in the feed. Our program with the beef is we have growers that start the steers out on an all-natural program. There's no hormones or antibiotics started on them. And then when we get them, we take them from, say, 700 or 800 pounds up to harvest, and they're raised on the spent grain from the brewery. We get about a ton a week from the brewery, and then they're out on pasture every day unless the pasture gets so saturated with water, which it is right now, where they can't go out because they'll destroy the pasture. When they're in the barn, they have plenty of room. There's no competition for feed. Everybody has plenty of feed. There's no competition for bed space. They all have plenty of room. The way we raise the beef using the brewery grain and how we raise them, this kind of a program that we call tender raised. And what that means is we're always very quiet around the animals. We never shout at them. We never beat them. We never force them into uncomfortable situations. And my wife takes care of them, so they're the most pampered cattle in the Northwest. They trust us, and they know us. And so what happens is they're happy, and they're content. And the difference between that and a feedlot animal is huge. The important thing about the brewery grain as feed for the animals is because it's been through the brewery process. Now this is 2-row barley. when it goes through the brewing process, it's almost like it's been cooked. We're running hot water at 160 degrees through the cracked barley. And what that's doing is it's breaking down the starches, and it's making double the protein available to the animal. It's easily digestible. Normal raw grain that you buy tends to be 12 to 13% in protein. This feed, this spent grain from the brewery, is 24 to 25% protein. The organic rules and regulations are so strict that, and the price of organic feed is so expensive that it's not a feasible program. We couldn't do it, and I refuse to. If I have an animal that gets sick, if he gets pneumonia or he gets an infected foot or something, I'm going to treat him so that he gets better. We will pull him out of the program for 100 days, but I just can't let an animal die because he's sick, okay? And the organic, there's very, very few remedies that'll actually treat a steer if he gets something that needs antibiotics to treat him. We are so lucky in McMinnville because we have a company just north of here called Carlton Farms. And Carlton processes all of our beef for us. They dry age it for 21 days. It's a USDA packing program. And without them, we could not do what we're doing. They're 5 minutes away from our farm, and the 21-day dry age program that they do for our beef, sometimes we'll age it for 28 days, but it's there's nothing like it, and you just can't get that anymore. The other thing that we have going on is we have a small garden, and it's not certified organic, but we use organic practices. When I was in college, one of the professors at school and I started up an organic gardening class, and we taught organic gardening for 3 years, my last 3 years at college. So I knew about that program way back then, and being in Oregon where you can grow so many cool things, so now we have a pretty serious garden. It's not a quarter acre, but it's a large garden. We usually have about 150 to 200 tomato plants, 100 squash, 100 peppers, cucumbers, beans, lettuce, kale, chard, potatoes, and all of that produce comes into the pub over the summertime. So if you take a tomato that comes out of our garden and put it on a plate next to a tomato that was grown in Mexico 2 months ago, and it's shipped green, and then it sort of ripens by the time it gets here, the flavor profiles are just completely different. And this is why the food in Europe is so good, or the food in anywhere in the world where they use locally grown small farms. There's a sweetness and a character to the food that you don't get out of mass-produced food. It's like when you're talking about wine and you talk about the terroir. The animals and the vegetables have a terroir to them, and when they're local and not mass-produced, you can taste that. When you get into the mass production level, where you have 10,000 hogs being raised in 6 barns, or 20,000 chickens in 8 barns, or something gets lost, and it has to do with quality, and it has to do with the sort of the integrity of the product. And you can talk about tomatoes or cucumbers or beef or pork or chicken. So that's our focus here, is to recapture that real locally produced product and present it to the guest in a comfortable atmosphere where they can relax and have a real meal, a wholesome, well-prepared, healthy meal for their family or for their friends. And then we have a great wine list. We have winemakers on the list that you can't find even in Portland, because we're right in the heart of the wine country. And enjoy it at a reasonable price. I'm really pleased with the level of quality we've achieved, and the consistency and how we fit in the community, to me, is a huge part of our success as a company. We are well grounded in the community, and we're sort of part of the community. Everybody relies on us to provide a great place to go, a comfortable place to go, and it's really amazing when you've been in business, so we're going on 18 years now, and when you've been in business that long and you have people come in with their kids that were kids when you opened up, and they've been coming in since 1993, and now the kids are sitting down and having a beer and on their 21st birthday. That's an eye-opener, but they're still coming. And I think that's as much as you can ask, we're still here and we're still strongly supported by the community. I really want to expand on our local producer program. We have a gal that brings our berries to us. We have a potato grower, and a guy that grows leeks and lettuce for us. And we have a Draper Farm just outside of town that produces tomatoes and peppers, squash, that we get on a weekly basis from him.